The question that we're asking, however, is does ethical marketing of this type have a place when money is so very, very tight that to spend it persuading people to buy something that might be slightly more expensive than your traditional coffee or tea, or clothes that maybe aren't quite as fashionable as the ones that you might like to buy, when there isn't as much money around as there should be? So it's an interesting perspective to take the debate from. And I'm happy to welcome questions from the floor at any point through the course of the next 20 minutes or so. If anyone has any particular burning issues they want to bring to light, I'll try and see you guys up there. What I wanted to ask you, first of all, fair trade and Traidcraft. Tell me a bit about the growth. When did this all start?
Traidcraft started in the late 70s right here in Newcastle. And I think in the early days, for the first 5-10 years, was pretty much the domain of open-toed sandals, hippies, and kind of slightly alternative. And I think the brilliant thing that's happened is because of the massive grassroots support. It's been a grassroots movement, a people-led movement. It has become mainstream, and actually now big companies are sitting up and taking notice of fair trade and realising this is a consumer trend that is here to stay, and businesses need to take part in fair trade to answer what their customers want. So to give you a scale on that, fair trade last year grew 70%, and it now stands at £500 million as a market. So I think by anybody's marketing terms, that's a significant category, and it's something that every business should stand up and take notice of.
Absolutely. I mean, the Newcastle University is fully fair traded up. You can't get coffee or tea or biscuits that aren't fair trade coffee, tea and biscuits, so we're doing our bit for the... But tell me something from your perspective, and you look at this in a slightly more holistic sense. Does every campaign that you put together these days embody some element of ethical marketing? Are you very conscious, even when your client maybe doesn't include it in the brief, of being able to say, here's the marketing mix we put together, here's what we suggest you do, and by the way, this will reduce your carbon footprint, or this will increase the profile?
I think we're all conscious, that individually and organisationally we don't exist in some kind of social vacuum. I think it's really important that that what we're trying to do when we're marketing is to market the values of organisations to their customers. To answer your question slightly less directly, if I might, but I think it's the wrong question here. Does ethical marketing have a place in the credit crunch? Because I don't think anyone would advocate unethical marketing, other than for great PR value. But also, marketing in the credit crunch is essential, and that's a really strong message that I'd like to get over. That, there's been a lot of research has been done that has shown in previous downturns that the companies that market are the ones that win business, and it's pretty logical because if everybody's hunkering down in the bunker, the ones that are putting their head above the parapet are going to get a greater market share. And the best place to perform once the economy turns. But in terms of the actual, I think the question really is about ethical business processes and whether you're wrapping them in as part of your brand positioning. And clearly, there are different kinds of ways of doing that in different organisations. I mean, Traidcraft, it's their raison d'etre, is social change. So it's clearly incredibly important that they market those brand communications. And also ethical marketing, whatever the economic situation, is important in terms of differentiation. If you look at something like Co-op Bank, the Co-op Bank probably won't challenge the big four banks in terms of market share, but because of its ethical values, its customers have very strong beliefs and so are more likely to stay with them in a financial crunch time, and that market share is much more secure. And then I know that Atkins Global have talked about product development, where basically you're sailing with the wind of social change in terms of trying to provide products and services that are very relevant to a more social agenda. So all of those, I don't think, are affected by economies. I think all of those are strengths of being ethical about what you market in the way you market. And generally, as I say, in the social context as individuals, there's things that we can do as individual marketing managers within the way we operate our businesses. The question mark is over how much you make that as part of your brand position. Yeah. And I think that's the really big but for me. The big but is that you have to believe and really value what you do. You have to believe in your brand and you have to live your brand. And if we've got time, I'll come back to a story from Wayne Hemingway, but I don't know if he's got time to...
Oh, wow, you can't leave it like that. All right, we'll save Wayne Hemingway until maybe after the video. Yeah.
the point is that we now, when we market, we don't control our marketing communications. We live in a world where marketing communications operate at this level. They're not down to customers. We get lots back up, but we also get lots between customers. And if you try to live and be something that you aren't, you'll soon end up on YouTube being exposed.
I think there is very much a generational issue. There's a question over here. I think sometimes it might be a generational issue as well. I mean, my parents have a completely different perspective to the perspective my 8-year-old has. You know, he'd be horrified if I didn't recycle something, whereas it doesn't occur to my parents all the time, unless he's there chasing them. We have a question over here. Yes.
Alistair Smith from the NEMC group.
Alistair Smith, yeah?
Yep. I just want to ask the question, or just pose the question. We seem to be having a debate here about ethical marketing as opposed to environmentally friendly marketing, which you were saying about recycling your plastic bags, so that falls into that. So can the panel just go through and see what difference they see between ethical and environmentally friendly?
Good question.
I have a feeling that the one is a subset of the other, but I mean, possibly it's incorrect of me to have focused on the recycling agenda. But
is it with Traidcraft? Surely they're bringing in product from the continent or from Africa. Is that environmentally friendly doing it that way? Shouldn't we be getting product that's closer to home?
Can I answer that?
You certainly can. Thank you. Good question.
Traidcraft has actually been kind of ahead of the game on the environment, even though it's better known for fair trade. From the very early days, the strapline for Traidcraft was for people and planet. So the environmental policies of Traidcraft, the environmental approach is very, very strong. So examples of things would be organic cotton farming, where we can't source cotton locally in Europe because we just don't have the climate. Organic cotton farming is a way of creating better water management, and also it cuts down on pesticides and fertilizers. I saw it in India last year. It's amazing, the environmental benefits. So even though I think sometimes we think of fair trade and the environment as being two different things, the way that we work in Traidcraft is very much holistically, and you need the environmental benefits and social benefits to create a sustainable livelihood in the developing world.
I think we've got a comment as well.
I think one of the big challenges is that it's very easy to take a very simplistic view of what impact is, particularly environmental impact. I mean, for example, you might think that sugar that comes from Suffolk, that our beet farmers are growing there, has a much lower impact than sugar that comes from Malawi, because Malawi is obviously a long way away, and obviously that would be a much bigger impact. But in actual fact, it's quite opposite. It's 3 times the CO2 impact of sugar that comes from Suffolk versus sugar that comes from Malawi. And the reason? Well, sugar that comes from Malawi, the actual process of producing the sugar actually generates energy. There's more energy available in that than needs to go into it. In fact, there are villages that Traidcraft is supporting that actually get their electricity for free from the waste electricity that comes from the sugar production. So the actual question doesn't always stack up, and that's why people need somebody who can help them through this. And again, I'll just do one shameless plug. Ethical Superstore is there to try and balance those things, to give people the opportunity to buy what they believe in. If fair trade's what really makes a difference for you, then you'll find fair trade products. If the environmental impact is there, we'll try and help you understand that. It could be it's actually something much more subtle. It could be something that's much more radical as a lifestyle. Perhaps you're a vegan and see the real benefits that come from that. Try doing the CO2 analysis on being a vegan. I'll tell you now, being a vegan has a miles lower CO2 impact than any other lifestyle. But it's not for all of us, so it's only for those that are going to really want to make that change. But having that information available so people can make those decisions themselves is key.
Through somewhere like ethicalsuperstore.com, obviously. But you had something that you wanted to mention on this point as well.
Yeah, I mean, the question, I think, was about what are we talking about, ethical marketing or environmental? I think, the understanding that I've thought about in terms of ethical marketing is it encompasses a broad range of social issues, if you like. And if you look at the Marks and Spencers have got their Plan A, I don't know how many people encountered that, which sort of has 5 aims, and it includes their environmental impact, the carbon offsetting and refuse, but also the way they treat their suppliers and staff. And I can't remember all 5, but it's quite a kind of broad portfolio. And the point I was trying to make about whether you use that in your brand positioning is to